Well, now that I'm recording some of this while we're official, I can start these by saying, hello, mi amor. I am here to read chapter 5 of the book, and that is what I will be doing. Chapter 5 of Stardust. In which there is much fighting for the crown. In the morning's bright light, the young lady seemed more human and less ethereal. She had said nothing since Tristram had woken. He took his knife and cut a fallen tree branch into a Y-shaped crutch while she sat beneath a sycamore tree and glared at him and glowered at him and scowled at him from her place on the ground. He peeled the bark from a green branch and wound it around the upper fork of the Y. They had had no breakfast yet, and Tristram was ravenous. His stomach rumbled as he worked. I'm gonna look ahead to see when this chapter ends, just out of curiosity. The curiosity has been answered. Okay. I'm not telling you. The star had said nothing about being hungry. Then again, she had done nothing at all but look at him. First reproachfully, and then with undisguised hatred. He pulled the bark tight, then looped it under itself and tugged on it once more. "This is honestly nothing personal," he said to the woman and to the grove. With the full sunlight shining down scarcely glittered at all. With the full sunlight shining down, she scarcely glittered at all, save for where the darkest shadows touched her. The star ran one pale forefinger up and down the silver chain, then went between them, tracing the line of it about her slim wrists, and made no reply. "I did it for love," he continued, "and you really are my only hope. Her name, that is, the name of my love, is Victoria Forrester, and she is the prettiest, wisest, sweetest girl in the whole wide world." The girl broke her silence with a snort of derision, I think. Yeah, derision. "And this wise, sweet creature sent you here to torture me?" she said. "Well, not exactly. You see, she promised me anything. Oh my God, she promised me anything I desired, be it her hand in marriage or her lips to kiss. Were I to bring her that star that we saw the night before last, I had thought," he confessed, "that a fallen star would probably look like a diamond or a rock. I certainly wasn't expecting a lady. So, having found a lady, could you not have come to her aid, or left her alone? Why drag her into your foolishness?" "Love," he explained. She looked at him with his eyes the blue of the sky. "I hope you choke on it," she said flatly. "I won't," said Tristram, with more confidence and good cheer than he actually felt. "Here, try this." He passed her the crutch and, reaching down, tried to help her to her feet. His hands tingled not unpleasantly where the skin touched hers. She sat on the ground like a tree stump, making no effort to get up. "I told you," she said, "that I would do everything in my power to frustrate your plans and devices." She looked around the grove. "How very bland this world does look by day, and how dull. Just put your weight on me and the rest on the crutch," he said. "You'll have to move sometime." He tugged on the chain, and reluctantly the star began to get to her feet, leaning first against Tristram, then, as if proximity to him disgusted her, on the crutch. She gasped, then, in a hard intake of breath, She gasped, then, in a hard intake of breath, and tumbled to the grass, where she lay with her face contorted, making small noises of pain. "Use a couple more periods, please, I beg you. Like, holy shit." Tristram knelt down beside her. "What's wrong?" he asked. Her blue eyes flashed, but they were swimming with tears. "My leg. I can't stand on it. It must be really broken." Her skin has gone white as a cloud, and she was shivering. "I'm sorry," said Tristram, uselessly. I like that the narration is like, yeah, you apologize, you couldn't really do shit. I can make you a splint. I've done it for sheep. It'll be alright. He squeezed her hand, and then he went to the brook and dipped his handkerchief in it and gave it to the star to wipe her forehead. He split more fallen wood with his knife, then he removed his jerkin and took off his shirt, which he proceeded to tear into strips, which he could use to bind the sticks as firmly as he could about her injured leg. The star made no sounds while he did this, although when he pulled the last knot tight, he thought he heard her whimper to herself. Really, he told her, we ought to get you a proper doctor. I'm not a surgeon or anything. No, she said dryly. You astonish me. He let her rest for a little in the sun, and then he said, better try again, I suppose. And he raised her to her feet. They left the glade at a hobble. The star leaning heavily on her crutch and on Tristran's arm, wincing at every step, and every time she winced or flinched, Tristran felt guilty and awkward, but he calmed himself by thinking of Victoria Forrester's grey eyes. They followed a deer path through the hazelwood, while Tristran, who had decided that the right thing to do was to make conversation with the star, asked how long she had been a star, whether it was enjoyable to see a star, or whether it was enjoyable to be a star, and whether all the stars were women, and informed her that he had always supposed stars to be, as Mrs. Cherry taught them, flaming balls of burning gas many hundreds of miles across, just like the sun, or further away. That's all. How many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines! 10 lines of one sentence! Holy shit. To all of these questions and statements, she made no answer. So why did you fall? He asked. Did you trip or something? Did you trip over something? She stopped moving and turned and stared at him as if she were examining something quite unpleasant a very long way away. I did not trip, she said at length. I was hit by this. She reached into her dress and pulled out a large yellowish stone which dangled from the 2 lengths of a silver chain. There's a bruise on my side where it hit me and knocked me out from the sky, and now I'm obligated to carry it about with me. Why? She seemed as if she were about to answer, and then she shook her head, and her lips closed, and there was nothing to say at all. A stream rilled and splashed to their right, keeping pace with them. The noonday sun was overhead, and Tristran found himself getting increasingly hungry. He took the heel of the dry loaf from his bag, moistened it in the stream, and shared it out, half and half. The star inspected the wet bread with disdain, and did not put it in her mouth. You'll starve, warned Tristran. She said nothing, just raised her chin a little higher. They continued through the woodland, making slow progress. They were laboring up a deer path along the side of the hill, which led them over fallen trees, and which had now become so steep it threatened to tumble the stumbling star and catch her captor down to the bottom. Oh my god. Is there not an easier path? Asked the star at length. Some kind of road or a level clearing? And once a question was asked, Tristran knew the answer. There's a road a half-mile that way, he told her, pointing. And a clearing over there, beyond that thicket, he said, turning to motion in another direction. You knew that? Yes. No. Well, I only knew it once you asked me. Let us make for the clearing, she said, and they pushed through the thicket as best as they could. It still took them the better part of an hour to reach the clearing, but the ground, when they got there, was as level and flat as a playing field. The space seemed to have been cleared with a purpose, but what that purpose was Tristran could not imagine. At the center of the glade, on the grass some distance from them, there was an ornate golden crown, which glittered in the afternoon sunlight. It was studded with red and blue stones, rubies and sapphires, thought Tristran. He was about to walk over to the crown when the star touched his arm and said, Wait, do you hear drums? He realized that he did, a low, throbbing beat coming from all around them. Near at his hand and near at his hand and far away, which echoed through the hills. All around them, near at his hand and far away. I don't know what that means. And then there came a loud crashing noise from the trees at the far side of the clearing, and a high, wordless screaming. Into the glade came a huge white horse, its flanks gashed and bloody. It charged into the middle of the clearing, and then it turned and lowered its head, facing its pursuer, which bounded into the clearing with a growl that made Tristran's flesh prickle. It was a lion, but it looked little enough like a lion Tristran had seen at the fair in the next village, which had been a mangy, toothless, roomy thing. Roomy spelt R-H-E-U-M-Y. I don't know what that word means, but I will assume. This lion was huge, the color of sand in the late afternoon. It entered the clearing at a run, and then it stopped and snarled at the white horse. The white horse looked terrified. Its mane was matted with sweat and blood, and its eyes were wild. Also, Tristran realized it had a long ivory horn jutting from the center of its forehead. It reared on its hind legs, whining and snorting, and one sharp, unshod hoof connected with the lion's shoulder, causing the lion to howl like a huge, scalded cat and to spring backwards. Then, keeping at a distance, the lion circled the wary unicorn, its golden eyes at all times fixed upon the sharp horn that was always turned towards it. "Stop them," whispered the star. "They will kill each other." The lion growled at the unicorn. It began as a soft growl, like a distant thunder, and finished as a roar that shook the trees and the rocks of the valley and the sky. The lion then sprang, and the unicorn plunged, and the glade was filled with gold and silver and red. For the lion was on the unicorn's back, claws gashing deeply into its... Give me the next page. Flanks, mouth at its neck, and the unicorn was wailing and bucking and throwing itself back in an effort to dislodge the great cat, flailing uselessly with its hooves and its horns in an effort to reach the tormentor. "Please do something. The lion will kill him," pleaded the girl urgently. Tristran would have explained to her that all he could possibly hope for if he were approached. Wow, that was bad. Tristran would have explained to her that all he could possibly hope for if he approached the raging beasts was to be skewered and kicked and clawed and eaten. And he would further have explained that, should he somehow survive approaching them, that there was still nothing that he could do, having with him not even the pail of water which had been traditional method of breaking animal fights in wall. But by the time all these thoughts had gone through his head, Tristran was already standing in the center of the clearing, an arm's length from the beasts. The scent of the lion was deep, animal, terrifying, and Tristran was close enough to see the beseeching expression in the unicorn's black eyes. The lion and the unicorn were fighting for the crown, Tristran thought to himself, remembering the old nursery rhyme. The lion beat the unicorn all about the town. He beat him once, he beat him twice. He beat with all his mane and all his might. Nope, I made it rhyme, but it didn't rhyme like that. Haha, 1 second. The lion beat the unicorn all about the town. He beat him once, he beat him twice, with all his might and main. He beat him 3 times over, his power to maintain. And with that, he picked up the crown from the grass. It was heavy and as heavy and as soft as lead. He walked towards the animal, talking to the lion as he had talked to the ill-tempered rams and agitated ewes in his father's field, saying, "Here now, easy, easy. Here's your crown." The lion shook the unicorn in its jaws, like a cat worrying a woolen scarf, and darted a look of pure puzzlement at Tristran. "Hello," said Tristran. There were burrs and leaves in the lion's mane. He held the heavy crown out and towards the great beast. "You won. Let the unicorn go." He took a step closer, then reached out both trembling hands and placed the crown upon the lion's head. The lion clambered off the prone body of the unicorn and began to pad, silently, about the clearing, its head raised high. It reached the edge of the wood, where it paused for several minutes to lick its wound with its red, red tongue. And then, purring like an earthquake, the lion slipped away into the forest. The star hobbled over to the injured unicorn and lowered herself into the grass, awkwardly. Her broken legs sprayed out by her side. Oh yeah, there was a unicorn at the, on the opening part. She stroked its head. Poor, poor creature, she said. It opened its dark eyes and stared at her, and then it laid its head upon her lap and closed its eyes once more. That evening, Tristram ate the last of the hard bread for his supper, and the star ate nothing at all. She had insisted they wait beside the unicorn, and Tristram had not the heart to refuse her. The clearing was dark now. The sky above them was filling with twinkling... Sorry, one sec. Just checking to make sure it's still recording. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but, you know. Random blah 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 worries. The clearing was dark now. The sky above them was filled with the twinkling of 1,000 stars. The Star Woman glittered too, as if she had been brushed by the Milky Way, while the unicorn glowed gently in the darkness, like a moon seen through clouds. Tristram lay beside the huge bulk of unicorn, feeling its warmth radiating out into the night. The star was lying on the other side of the beast. It sounded almost as if she were murmuring a song to the unicorn. Tristram wished he could hear her properly. The fragments of melody he could make out were strange and tantalizing. But she sang so quietly he could hear next to nothing at all. His fingers touched the chain that bound them. Cold as snow it was, and tenuous as moonlight on a mill pond or a glint of light on a trout's river, scales as it rises at dusk to feed. I don't know. There's some stuff where I'm like, this is really nice in setting an image, and there's some where I'm like, okay, this is weird to read, and also I don't know what it's telling me. Whatever. And soon he slept. The Witch Queen drove her chariot down a forest path, lashing the flanks of the twin white billy goats with a whip when they flagged. She had observed the small cooking fire burning beside the path from almost half a mile back, and she knew from the color of the flames that it was the fire of one of her people, for witch fires burn with a certain unusual hue. So she reined in her goats when she reached the brightly painted gypsy caravan, and the cooking fire, and the iron-haired woman who sat beside the fire, tending to the spit over the flames on which a hare was roasting. Fat dripped from the hare's open gut, hissing and sizzling in the fire, which gave off the twin aromas of cooking meat and of wood smoke. A multicolored bird sat by the driver's seat at the front of the caravan, on a wooden perch. It raised its feathers and called out in alarm when it saw the Witch Queen, but it was chained to its perch and could not leave. "Before you say anything," said the grey-haired woman, "I should tell ye that I'm just a poor old flower seller, a harmless old biddy who's never done nothing to no one, and that the sight of a grand and terrifying lady such as yourself fills me with dread and fear." "I will not harm you," said the Witch Queen. The harridan screwed her eyes to slits and looked at the lady in the red girdle up and down. "That's what you says," she said. "But how am I to know that it's so? A sweet old dear like me, who's all a tremble from her toes to her water. You might be planning to rob me in the night, or worse." She poked the fire with a stick so it leapt up. The smell of the cooking meat hung there in the evening air. "I swear," said the lady in the scarlet kirtle, "that, by the rules and constraints of the sisterhood to which you and I belong, by the puissance of the Lilum, and by my lips and breasts and maidenhood, that I mean you no harm and shall treat you as if you were my own guest." "That's good enough for me, dearie ducks," said the old woman, her face breaking into a smile. "Come and sit down. Supper'll be cooked in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail." "With good will," said the lady in the red girdle. The goats snuffed and munched at the grass and the leaves beside the chariot, eyeing with distaste the tethered mules that pulled the caravan. Fine goats," said the harridan. I was trying to figure out who the harridan was for a second. It's the old lady. The witch queen inclined her head and smiled modestly. The firelight glinted on the little scarlet snake wrapped as a bracelet around her wrist. The harridan went on. Now, my dear, my old eyes aren't once what they were by any means, but would I be correct in supposing that one of those fine fellows started life walking on 2 legs, not 4? Such things have been heard of, admitted the witch queen. That splendid bird of yours, for example. That bird gave away one of the prizes of my stock of items for sale. Gave it away to a good-for-nothing nearly 20 years ago. And afterward the trouble she put me through scarcely bears considering. So these days she stays a bird, unless there's work that needs doing, or a flower stall to run. And if I could find a good strong servant, not afraid of a little hard work, then why then she would not... What am I saying? God, fucking talking in whoop-de-doo. So these days she stays a bird unless there's work that needs doing, or a flower stall to be run. And if I could find a good strong servant, not afraid of a little hard work, why then she would stay a bird forever. The bird chirruped sadly on the perch. They call me Mistress Semele. Semele? I don't know. Semele, said the harridan. They call you Ditchwater Sal, when you were a young chit of a thing, thought the witch queen, but she did not say this out loud. You may call me Morwaneg. Morwaneg. What would it be? Genoram? Morwaneg, she said. I was reading it backwards, sorry. My brain is dying, said the witch instead. It was, she reflected, almost a joke, for Morwaneg means wave of the sea, and her true name was long since drowned and lost beneath the cold ocean. Mistress Semele got to her feet and made her way into the interior of the caravan, emerging with 2 painted wooden bowls, 2 wooden-handled knives, and a small pot of herbs, dried and flaked into a green powder. I was going to be eating with fingers on a plate of fresh leaves, she said, handing the bowl to the lady in the scarlet kirtle. The bowl had a sunflower painted upon it, under a layer of dust. But I thought, well, how often does I get such fine company? So nothing but the best. Heads or tails? Let it be your choice, said her guest. Heads, then, for you, with the luscious eyes and brains, and the crispy crunchy ears of him, and I'll have the rump, with nothing but dull meat to nibble. She lifted the spit off the fire as she spoke, and using both knives so fast they seemed a little more than a glitter of blades, she parted the carcass and sliced the meat from the bones, and dealt it out fairly equitably into each bowl. She passed the pot of herbs to her guest. There's no salt, my dear, but if you shake this on, it will do the trick. A little basil, a little mountain thyme, my own recipe. The witch queen took her portion of roasted hare in one of the knives and sprinkled a bit of the herbs onto the dish. She speared a bite on the point of the knife and ate it with relish, while her hostess toyed with her own portion, then bit on it fastidiously, steam coming from the crisp brown meat. How is it? Asked the old woman. Perfectly palatable, said her guest, honestly. It is the herbs that makes it so fine, explained the harridan. I can taste the basil and the thyme, said the guest, but there's another taste I find much harder to place. Ah, said Madame Semele, as she nibbled a sliver of the meat. It is I'm trying to figure out who the fuck is talking. It is certainly a most uncommon taste. That it is. It's an herb. It's a herb that grows only in Garamond, on an island in the midst of a wide lake. It is most pleasant with all manner of meats and fishes. It reminds me and flavor a little of the leaves of fennel, with but a hint of nutmeg. The flowers of it are a most attractive shade of orange. It is good for wind and the ague, and it is, in addition, a gentle soporific, which has the curious property of causing one who tastes it to speak nothing but the truth for several hours. Ah, okay. The lady in the scarlet kirtle dropped the wooden bowl onto the ground. Limbus grass, she said. You dared to feed me limbus grass? That's how it would seem, dearie. And the old woman cackled and hooted with delight. So, tell me now, Mistress Morweneg, if that's really your name, where are you a-going of in your fine chariot? And why do you remind me of someone I once knew? And Madame Semele forgets nothing and no one. Oh, okay. I was like, why is she saying her own name? I am on my way to find a star, said the witch queen, which fell in the great woods on the other side of Mount Belly. And when I find her, I shall take my great knife and cut out her heart while she lives, and while her heart is her own, for the heart of a living star is a sovereign remedy against all the snares of age and time. My sisters wait for me to return. Madame Semele hooted and hugged herself, swaying back and forth, bony fingers clutching her sides. The heart of a star, is it? Such a prize will make for me. I shall taste enough of it that my youth will come back, and my hair from greys to golden, and my dugs swell and soften and firm and high, become firm and high. Then I shall take the heart that's left to the great market of Wall. You shall do no such thing. You shall do no such thing, said her guest, very quietly. No, you are my guest, dear. You swore your oath. You've tasted of my food. According to the laws of our sisterhood, there's nothing you can do to harm me. Oh, there are so many things I could do to harm you, Ditchwater Sal. But I shall simply point out that one who has eaten limbus grass can speak nothing but the truth for several hours afterwards. And one more thing. Distant lightning flickered in her words as she spoke, and the forest was hushed, as if every leaf and every tree were listening intently to what she said. This I say. You have stolen knowledge you did not earn, but it shall not profit you, for you shall be unable to see the star, unable to perceive it, unable to touch it, to taste it, to find it, to kill it. Even if you were to cut out its heart and give it to you, even if another were to cut out its heart and give it to you, you would not know it, never know it. What you had in your hand, this I say, these are my words, and they are a true speaking. And know this also. I swore, by the compact of the sisterhood, that I would do you no harm. I had not so sworn I would change you into a black beetle, and I would pull your legs off one by one, and leave you for the birds to find, for putting me in this indignity. Madame Semele's eyes opened wide with fright, and she stared over the flames of the fire at her guest. Who are you? She said. When you knew me last, said the woman in the scarlet kirtle, I ruled with my sisters in Caranadine before it was lost. You? Oh, but you are dead, long dead. They have said that the Lilum were dead before now, but they have always lied. The squirrel has not yet found the acorn that will grow into the oak that will be cut down to form the cradle of the babe who will grow to slay me. Silver flashes glittered and flared in the flames as she spoke. So it is you. And you have your youth back, Madame Semele sighed. And now I, too, shall be young again. The lady in the scarlet kirtle stood up and then placed the bowl, which had contained her portion of hair, into the fire. You shall be nothing of the kind, she said. Did you not hear me? A moment after I leave, you shall forget that you ever saw me. You shall forget all of this. Even my curse, although the knowledge of it shall vex and irritate you, like an itch in a limb long since amputated, and you may treat your guests with more. And may you treat your guests with more grace and respect in the future. The wooden bowl burst into flames then. A huge gout of flames. Checking that I'm still recording. Ha ha ha. A huge gout of flame which singed the leaves of the oak tree far above them. Madame Simile knocked the blackened bowl out from the fire with a stick, and then stamped it out in the long grass. Whatever could have possessed me to drop the bowl into the fire? She exclaimed aloud. And look, one of my nice knives all burned up and ruined. What was I a-thinking of? There came no answer. From further down the road came the drumming beats of something that might have been the hooves of goats, racing on into the night. Madame Semele shook her head as if to clear it of dust and cobwebs. I'm getting old, she said to the multicolored bird who sat on its perch by the driver's seat and who had observed everything and forgotten nothing. Getting old, and there's no doing anything about that. The old bird shifted uncomfortably on the perch. A red squirrel quested, hesitating a little into the firelight. It picked up an acorn and held it for a moment, in its hand-like front paws, as if it were praying. Then it ran away to bury the acorn and to forget it. I got a message, and I think it was you. You did! It's you! One moment. You're texting me about shirts. Hey, I didn't end recording this time. Skaith's Ebb is a small seaport town built on granite, a town of chandelier. That doesn't say chandeliers. Chandlers and carpenters and sailmakers, of old sailors with missing fingers and limbs who have opened their own grog houses or spend their days in them. What is left of their hair still tarred to the long queues, though the stubble on their chins has long since dusted to white. There are no whores in Skaith's Ebb, or none that consider themselves as such, although there have always been many women who, if pressed, would describe themselves as much married, with one husband on this ship here every 6 months, and another husband on that ship back in port for a month or so every 9 months. The mathematics of the thing have always kept most folks satisfied, and if ever it disappoints, and a man returns to his wife while another of her husbands, still in occupancy, why, there is a fight, and the grog shops open to comfort the loser. The sailors do not mind the arrangement, for they know that this way there will at the least be one person who, at the last, oh my god, fucking, I hate this sentence. I hate this sentence. Fuck you. This sucks. Sorry. And it's such a long sentence, too. The sailors do not mind the arrangement, for they know that this way there will, at the least, be one person who, at the last, will notice when they do not come back from the sea, and will mourn their loss, and their wives content themselves with certain knowledge that their husbands are also unfaithful, for there is no competing with the sea in a man's affection, since she is both mother and mistress, and she will always wash his corpse also in time to come, wash it with coral and ivory and pearls. Give me a period, or I'll kill myself. Oh, great, now this isn't going to go up on YouTube. So it was to Skaith's Ebb that the Lord Primus of Stormhold came one night. Also, you texted again, so I'm going to go check that. Be right back. You told me to shush, and I'm not exactly sure why. That's funny, texting you and also reading this. Let's go. So it was to Skaith's ebb that Lord Primus of Stormhold came one night, all dressed in black, with a beard as thick and serious as the one of the stork's nests in the town chimneys. He came in a carriage drawn by 4 black horses, and he took a room. Oh, something auto played, but I don't like it, so I'm switching the song anyways. He came in a carriage drawn by 4 black horses, and he took a room in the Seaman's Rest on Crook Street. He was considered most peculiar in his needs and requests, for he brought his own food and to drink into his rooms, and kept it locked in the wooden chest, which he would only take himself an apple or a wedge of cheese or a cup of pepper wine. This was the topmost room in the Seaman's Rest, a high and spindly building built on a rock outcrop to facilitate smuggling. He bribed a number of the local street urchins to report him the moment they saw any fellow they did not come to see town. Oh my god, I'm dying. He bribed a number of the local street urchins to report to him the moment they saw any fellow they did not know come to town. By land or sea, in particular, they were looking for a very tall, angular, dark-haired fellow with a thin, hungry face and blank eyes. I guess that sentence made more sense. It's surrounded by so much shit that I'm having difficulties. Primus is certainly learning caution, said Secundus to his 4 dead brothers. Well, you know what they say, whispered Quintus, in the wistful tones of the dead, which sounded on that day like the lapping of distant weaves upon a shingle. A man who is tired of looking over his shoulder for Septimus is tired of life. In the mornings, Primus would talk to the sea captains with ships in Skaith's ebb, buying them grog liberally, but neither drinking nor eating with them. In the afternoon he would inspect the ships and the docks. Soon the gossip of Skaith's ebb, and there were many, had the gist of the juice of it all. The bearded gentleman was taking a ship to the east, and this tale would soon be chased by another, that he would be sailing out of the heart of the Dream under Captain Yan, a black-trimmed ship with its deck painted crimson red, or of more or less savory reputation, by which I mean that it was generally held that she kept her piracies for distant waters, and this would be happening as soon as he gave the word. Good master, said a street urchin to Lord Primus, there's a man in town, come by land. He lodges with Mistress Pettier, and he is thin and crow-like, and I saw him in Ocean's Roar, buying grog for every man in the room. He says he is a distressed seafaring man seeking a berth. Primus patted the boy's filthy head and handed him a coin, and returned to his preparations. And that afternoon it was announced that the Heart of a Dream would leave harbor in 3 short days. The day before the Heart of a Dream was to set sail, Primus was seen to sell his coach and 4 horses to the stableman on Wardle Street, after which he walked down to the quay, dispensing small coins to the urchins. He entered his cabin in the Heart of a Dream, and gave strict orders that none was to disturb him, for any reason, good or bad, until they were at least a week out of port. That evening an unfortunate accident befell an able seaman who had crewed the rigging on the Heart of a Dream. He fell, when drunk, on the slippery cobblestones of Revenue Street, and broke his hip. Luckily there was a replacement already, the very sailor with whom he had been drinking that evening, and to whom the injured man had been persuaded to demonstrate a particularly complicated hornpipe step on the wet cobbles. And this sailor... Oh, you responded. Hee hee hee. And this sailor, tall, dark, and crow-like, marked the ship's papers with a circle that night, and was on deck at dawn when the ship sailed out of the harbor in the morning mist. The Heart of a Dream sailed east. Lord Primus of Stormhold, his beard freshly shaven, watched it sail from a cliff top until it was lost to view. Then he walked down to Wardle Street, where he returned the stableman's money and something more besides, and he rode off on the coast towards the west in a dark coach pulled by 4 black horses. That's crazy. I thought that was going to happen. I actually thought he was totally just being like, oh yeah, can't wait to head out that way. Oh, am I so happy to be going that direction. to like lure someone and then be like, fucking idiot. Anyways, it was an obvious solution. After all, oh, we're back. Okay. It was an obvious solution. After all, the unicorn had been ambling hugely behind them for most of the morning, occasionally nudging the star's shoulder with its big forehead. The wounds on its dappled flanks, which had blossomed like red flowers under the lion's claws the day before, were now dried to brown and scabbed over. Oh, you're texting me. You want to call me? I will stop here, but you won't be able to tell because I'm going to add the next 7 pages, and you will have no idea that I called you because after this, after my rambling, which makes it very obvious that I'm going to stop, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm stopping recording. It'll be seamless for you, of course. Mwah. Wow, would you look at that? Seamless transition. You were calling me about buying me a shirt or a hoodie? I partially do not remember what you said. And I meant bunny, and that was cool. Anyways, it was an obvious solution. After all, the unicorn had been ambling hugely behind them for most of the morning, occasionally nudging the star's shoulder with its big forehead. The wounds on its dappled flanks, which had blossomed like red flowers under the lion's claws the day before, were now dried to brown and scabbed over. The star limped and hobbled and stumbled, and Tristan walked beside her, a cold chain binding wrist to wrist. On the one hand, Tristan felt there was something almost sacrilegious about the idea of riding a unicorn. It was not a horse. It did not subscribe to any of the ancient pacts between man and horse. There was a wildness in its black eyes and a twisting spring to its step which was dangerous and untamed. On the other hand, Tristan had begun to feel, in a way that he could not articulate, that the unicorn cared about the star and wished to help her. So he said, "Look, I know all that stuff about frustrating my plans with every step of the way, but if the unicorn is willing, perhaps it would carry you on its back for a little way?" The star said nothing. "Well?" She shrugged. Tristan turned to the unicorn, stared into its pool black eyes. "Can you understand me?" he asked. It said nothing. He had hoped it would nod its head or stamp a hoof, like a well-trained horse he had once seen on the village green when he was younger, but it simply stared. "Will you carry the lady? Please?" The beast said not a word, nor did it nod or stamp. But it walked to the star, and it knelt down at her feet. Tristan helped the star onto the unicorn's back. She grasped its tangled mane with both hands and sat saddle side up on it, her broken legs sticking out, and that was how they traveled for some hours. Tristan walking alongside them, carrying her crutch over his shoulder with his bag dangling from the end. He found it as hard to travel with the star riding the unicorn as it had been before. Then he had been forced to walk slowly, trying to keep pace with the star's limping hobble. Now he was hurrying to keep up with the unicorn, nervous that lest the unicorn should get too far ahead and the chain that linked them both should pull the star from the beast's back. I thought it was going to say, worried that it'll pull him back or pull her back or start, fucking yanking him around, smacking trees and shit. He was painfully aware of how hungry he was. Soon, Tristan began to think of himself as nothing more than hunger, thinly surrounded by flesh, and as fast as he could, walking. He stumbled and he knew he was going to fall. "Please, stop," he gasped. The unicorn slowed and stopped. The star looked down at him. Then she made a face and shook her head. "You had better come up here too," she said, "if the unicorn will let you. Otherwise you'll just faint or something, and drag me onto the ground with you. And we need to go somewhere so that you can get food." Tristan nodded gracefully. The unicorn appeared to offer no opposition, waiting passively, so Tristan attempted to clamber up onto it. It was like climbing a sheer wall, and as fruitless. Eventually Tristan led the animal over to a beech tree that had been uprooted several years before by a storm, or a high wind, or an irritable giant, and, holding his bag and the star's crutch, he scrambled up the roots onto the trunk, and from there onto the back of the unicorn. "There is a village on that side of the hill," said Tristan. I expect we can find something to eat when we get there. He, that's cool. He really only knew where stuff was when people asked, but now he just knew it. I guess technically she prompted it earlier, where it said we can get somewhere, but that's cool. He patted the unicorn's flanks with his free hand. The beast began to walk. Tristan moved his hand to feel the star's waist, to steady himself. He could feel the silken texture of her thin dress, and beneath that, the thick chain of topaz around her wrists. Riding a unicorn was not like riding a horse. It did not move like a horse. It was a wilder ride and a stranger one. The unicorn waited until Tristan and the star were comfortable upon its back, and then, slowly and easily, it began to put on speed. The trees surged and leapt past them. The star leaned forward, her fingers tangled into the unicorn's mane. Tristan, his hunger forgotten in his fear, gripped the sides of the unicorn with his knees and simply prayed that he would not be knocked to the ground by a strayed branch. Soon, he found he was beginning to enjoy the experience. There was something about riding a unicorn, for those people who still can, which is unlike any other experience, exhilarating and intoxicating and fine. The sun was setting, and when they reached the outskirts of the village in a rolling meadow... Nope, sorry, one sec. The sun was setting when they reached the outskirts of the village. In a rolling meadow, beneath an oak tree, the unicorn came to a skittish halt and would go no further. Tristan dismounted and landed with a bump on the grass of the meadow. His rump felt sore, but with the star looking down at him, uncomplaining, he dared not rub it. "Are you hungry?" he asked the star. She said nothing. "Look," he said, "I'm starving. Perfectly famished. I don't know if you are. If stars eat. I don't know if stars eat, or what they eat, but I won't have you starving yourself." He looked up at her, questioning. She stared down at him, first impassively, then in a trice. Her blue eyes filled with tears. She raised a hand to her face and wiped the tears, leaving a smudge of mud on her cheeks. "We only eat darkness," she said, "and we drink only light. So I'm not hungry. I'm lonely and scared and cold and miserable and captured, but I'm not hungry." "Don't cry," said Tristan. "Look, I'll go into the village and get some food. You just wait here. The unicorn will protect you if anyone comes." He reached up and gently lifted her down from the unicorn's back. The unicorn shook its mane, then began to crop the grass of the meadow contentedly. The star sniffed. "Wait here?" she asked, holding onto the chain that joined them. "Oh," said Tristan. "Give me your hand." She reached her hand out to him. He fumbled with the chain to undo it, but it would not undo. Said Tristan. He tugged at the chain around his own wrist, but it, too, held fast. "It looks," he said, "as if I'm tied to you as you are to me." The star threw her hair back, closed her eyes, and died sleepily, and then opened her eyes once again, self-possessed. She said, "Perhaps there's a magic word or something." "I don't know any magic words," said Tristan. He held the chain up. It glittered red and purple in the light of the setting sun. "Please?" he said. There was a ripple in the fabric of the chain, and he slid his hand out of it. "Here you go," he said, passing the star the other end of the chain that had bounded her. "I'll try not to be too long, and if any of the fair folk sting their silly songs at you, for heaven's sake, don't throw your crutch at them. They'll only steal it." "I won't," she said. "I'll have to trust you, on your honor as a star, not to run away," he said. She touched her splinted leg. "I will do no running for quite some time," she said, pointedly. And with that Tristan had to content himself. He walked the last half mile to the village. It had no inn, being far off from the beaten track for travelers, but this portly old woman who explained this to him then insisted he accompany her to her cottage, where she pressed upon him a wooden bowl full of barley porridge with carrots in it, and a mug of small beer. He exchanged his cambric handkerchief for a bottle of elderflower cordial, a round of green cheese, and a number of unfamiliar fruits. They were soft and fuzzy, like apricots, but they were the purple blue of grapes, and they smelled a little like ripe pears. Also, the woman gave a small bale. Oh my god, I knew it said it normally, I just felt weird. Also, the woman gave him a small bale of hay for the unicorn. He walked back to the meadow where he had left them, munching on a piece of fruit, which was juicy. Juicy and chewy, and quite sweet. He wondered if the star would like to try one, whether she liked it or not. He had hoped that she would be pleased with what he had brought her. At first, Tristram thought that he must have made a mistake, and that he lost his way in the moonlight. No, it was the same big oak tree, the one beneath it which the star had been sitting. "Hello?" he called. The glowworms and fireflies glittered green and yellow in the hedgerows and of the branches of the tree. There came no reply, and Tristram felt sick, a stupid feeling in the pit of his stomach. "Hello?" he called. No answer. He stopped calling, because then there was no answer. He dropped the bale. Oh my god, I keep saying Bay of Hail in my head. He dropped the bale of hay, and then he kicked it. She was to the southwest of him, moving faster than he could walk. He followed after her in the bright moonlight. Inside, he felt numbed and foolish, stung by a pang of guilt and shame and regret. He should not have loosened her chain. He should have tied it to a tree. He should have forced the star to go with him into the village. This went through his head as he walked. But another voice spoke to him also, pointing out that had he not unchained her then, he would have done it sometime soon, and she would have run from him then too. He wondered if he would ever be able to see the star again, and he stumbled over roots as the way led him between old trees into a deep woods. The moonlight slowly vanished beneath the thick canopy of leaves, and after stumbling vainly in the dark for a short while, he laid himself down beneath the tree, rested his head on his bag, and closed his eyes, and felt sorry for himself until he fell asleep. On a rocky mountain pass, on which the southernmost slopes of Mount Belly, the witch queen reigned in her goat-drawn chariot and stopped and sniffed the chilly air. The myriad stars hung cold in the sky above her. Her red lips curved up into a smile of such beauty, such brilliance. Oh, pure and perfect happiness, that it would have frozen your blood in your veins to have seen it. "There," she said, "she is coming to me." And the wind of the mountain pass howled about her triumphantly, as if in answer. Primus sat beside the embers of his fire, and he shivered beneath the thick black robe. One of the black stallions, waking or dreamings, whined and snorted, and then rested once more. Primus's face felt strangely cold. He missed his thick beard. With a stick he pushed a clay ball from the embers. He spat on his hands. Then he open the hot clay and smelled the sweet flesh of the hedgehog, which he had cooked slowly in the embers as he had slept. He ate the breakfast meticulously, spitting the tiny bones into the fire circle once he had chewed the meat from them. He washed the hedgehog down with a lump of hard cheese and a slightly vinegary white wine. Once he had eaten, he wiped his hands upon his robe, and then he cast the runes to find the topaz stone, which conferred the lordship of the crag town and the vast estates of Stormhold. He cast them, then he stared, puzzled, at the small, square, red granite tiles. He picked them up once more, shook them in his long-fingered hands, dropped them to the ground, and stared at them again. Then Primus spat onto the embers, which hissed lazily. He swept up the tiles and dropped them into the pouch at his belt. "It is moving faster, further," said Primus to himself. He pissed on the embers of the fire, and he was in wild country, and there were bandits and hobgoblins and worse in these lands, and he had no desire to alert them to his presence. Then he hitched the horses to the carriage and climbed into the driver's seat and drove them towards the forest, to the west, and to the mountain range beyond. The girl held tight to the unicorn's neck as it tumbled headlong through the dark forest. There was no moonlight between the trees, but the unicorn glimmered and shone with pale light, like the moon, while the girl herself glittered and glowed as if trailed a dust of lights. And oh, you texted again. No, you didn't. Someone else texted. Boo! and as she passed through the trees, it might have appeared to a distant observer that she seemed to twinkle on and off and off and on, like a tiny star. Well, that was lovely. I'm getting a little not tired. Like, let me say this: not tired of reading. What was I saying? Oh, just some sentences are fucking hard. But also the next chapter is shorter, which is nice. And the chapter after that is much, much longer. Oh no, that's because I skipped one. Oh well. We are officially, like, visibly more than halfway through the book, and I'm very happy about that. And yeah, I'm hoping to get a couple more recorded today, and then maybe we'll be one final stretch away from being done recording, in general. So I am very happy with that. Sorry for the post-amble about it. But yeah, I love you.